Hey everyone, it's me. Welcome back to this channel on narcissism. Today we're going to talk about the narcissistic personality. And before I get into that, let me remind you that there is a quiz in the community section of the channel. It's free. You can take that quiz to find out if you have narcissistic personality. So what is the narcissistic personality? Well, we hear about narcissism all the time. We know it when we see it. But just to kind of ground us in terms of what the term means, narcissism comes from the Greek word for ego, which is Narcissus. The myth is that there was a young man who was so beautiful, so handsome that he fell in love with his own reflection. He fell in love with himself. And that's really at the heart of narcissism, an overfixation on oneself, one's own needs, one's own wants, one's own image, one's own grandiosity. Narcissistic personality is a personality style characterized by a pattern of self-centered, exploitative, and manipulative behavior. People with narcissistic personalities have a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. This pattern usually begins in early adulthood and affects all areas of their lives. Narcissistic personality is not just being selfish or self-centered. It's a more severe and pervasive pattern of behavior that can cause significant distress and dysfunction. Now, there are actually several different subtypes of narcissism. The first subtype is what we call the grandiose narcissist. The grandiose narcissist is someone who is characterized by arrogance, overconfidence, and a sense of entitlement. Often have a history of being admired or praised for their success, and they use this tension to fuel their sense of superiority. Grandiose narcissists can be very charming and charismatic, but they are also prone to being very manipulative and exploitative. They often use other people to achieve their own goals, and then discard them when they are no longer useful. The other subtype is what we call the vulnerable narcissist. The vulnerable narcissist is characterized by hypersensitivity, insecurity, and a tendency to feel persecuted or victimized. They often have a history of being criticized or rejected, and they carry these wounds throughout their adult lives. Vulnerable narcissists are often very defensive and dismissive of other people's feelings. They may also be prone to having outbursts of anger or violence when they feel threatened. The third subtype is what we call the somatic narcissistic personality. These individuals are preoccupied with their own physical appearance, and they may have a distorted body image. They often have a history of being objectified or sexualized, and they use their appearance to protect themselves from further harm. Somatic narcissists may also be very vain and narcissistic personality. These are just 3 of the subtypes of narcissism. There are actually many more. Narcissism is a spectrum. Most people are somewhere on the narcissistic spectrum. But when it becomes a pattern that is causing significant distress and dysfunction, then it becomes a problem. Now, you may be thinking, how does narcissism affect the brain? Well, studies have shown that people with narcissistic personalities have differences in their brain structure and function. Specifically, they have reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain responsible for empathy and social cognition. They also have increased activity in the amygdala, which is the area of the brain responsible for processing negative emotions like fear and anger. These differences in brain activity may explain why people with narcissistic personalities have difficulty understanding and responding appropriately to other people's emotions. Now, you might be wondering, how common is narcissistic personality disorder? Well, it's actually quite common. It affects about 6.2 million adults in the United States alone. Narcissistic personality is more common in men than in women, and it is often comorbid with other mental disorders such as antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depressive disorder. Well, there you have it. It's a quick overview of the narcissistic personality. If you're interested in learning more about narcissism, please stay tuned for more videos on this topic.
Thanks again.